Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. We're going to continue our readings about the things that Prabhupada said about going back to Godhead. It's actually from a book called the Sikshamrita, and there is a section called Back to Godhead. So these are letters. These are letters in which Prabhupada uses the phrase back to Godhead and in various contexts, generally in the context of what's necessary to go back to Godhead. So we're going to read those, and we're also going to begin a new section once we finish. There's about maybe 5 or 6 more quotes to read, and then we're going to begin a section. I hope it's okay with you. If you have any objection, let me know. I wanted to begin a section on Maya. If you heard the lecture yesterday, we began reading some quotes from Srila Prabhupada about the nature of Maya. There's many. And in the Sikshamrita, there's a section on Maya, Yoga Maya, and Mahamaya, the difference in how Maya works. And as I've often said, to know how the enemy works is very important, how we're being illusioned, and when we have some thoughts and ideas and we can think, oh, this is Maya speaking, this is not Krishna. So that's what we're going to do. So it may take a few days, it may take the entire week to finish the section on Back to Godhead. It just depends on the discussion. It won't take long to read them all, but it depends on the discussion. So we'll do a little kirtan. I have to put on my headphones in order to make this work. Krishna. Govinda Hari Murari He Natha Narayana Bhaja Vasudeva. Sri Krishna Govinda Hari Murari He Natha Narayana. Yes, we have a situation where I can't hear my keyboard. And if I can't hear it, you can't hear it. And I fail to understand why. It's a mystery. It is definitely a mystery. Some days you hit the buttons and you hear it, and some days you hit the buttons and you don't hear it. Can you hear the keyboard, anybody? Because I don't hear it. And there's no reason I shouldn't hear it. Hold on. The plugs were pulled out. Now you hear it, right? Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasaranandana Braja Jana Ranjana Suranandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. I just have to move my keyboard. Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Shaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sanyavari Puschatya Dasatarine. So we'll finish. The topic of talking about Maya, in one sense, you could say it's our business to talk about Maya, how we're entangled in Maya. It's also our business to talk about Krishna, but Maya is also an aspect of our philosophy that it's important to understand. So, we're going to continue reading from the letters. I just have to find our spot. Okay, here's what could be a depressing letter. And I'll have to explain it to you, so you don't get depressed. Well, yesterday in the class at the temple, at the end of the class, we were discussing a verse from the 11th canto, chapter 20, text 27, I believe, and the devotee is expressing basically that he's a failure in Krishna consciousness, but at the same time he says he's not going to give up, and he's not really losing his enthusiasm. So, we have to be able to recognize our failures without giving up our desire to be successful. And so sometimes you'll read something, or you'll hear Prabhupada say something, and you'll think, well, I could never do that. And you could lose your enthusiasm. But Prabhupada always said that if you continue the process, someday you'll be able to do it. So that's how we understand. So this letter may be a little bit like that. So we'll have to explain it. So don't get depressed yet. This is from 1974, 12th of February. I know you have been attending our temple in Boston sometimes, and that you wish to be a sincere devotee of Krishna. So go on faithfully with your chanting and pray to Krishna to give you strength for advancing in his service. It is a fact, however, that we must become free of all material desire before going back to Godhead. And this can only be achieved by following the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master. So I want to qualify this free from all material desire. Because sometimes you have material desire, but you don't have material desire. And that means you have material desire, but you're not interested in that material desire. It's just conditioned from past lives. So the mind just brings up things, as you know. The mind brings up things. And it sometimes brings up thoughts or desires that we're not even interested in, that's just a very interesting reality, right? That sometimes you're thinking about something. And I used to do this as a child. I would think about things that I would never do. I would just think, this could be done. And then someone would say, you want to do that? And I'd say, I have no desire to do it. I was just contemplating that this could be done. So it's like, why am I thinking about things that I'm not going to do? You know, and sometimes in detail, planning it out. We do it this way, this way, this way. So the mind is sometimes like that, very creative. And so it's thinking about things you don't even want to do. I remember years ago, we were taking morning walks on a golf course. And then one night I had a dream about playing golf. And when I was very young, like 12, I started playing golf, and even 11. And I didn't really like it. I was good at it, but I didn't really like it. Played a few years. And so I had this dream, and I was thinking, why am I thinking about playing golf? I don't even like it. I never liked it. I mean, it was okay. It's not a very exciting sport, especially for a 12-year-old. You know, maybe it's a challenge of your skill, your concentration, and certain abilities. But I found other things more exciting. And now I'm dreaming about playing golf. It's just like, it's there. It's there. So just because it's there doesn't mean we actually just because the desire is there doesn't actually mean we desire it. It could be like a shadow or a spot. You know how sometimes you get a stain on your clothes and you wash it and you get most of it out, but there's a little slight blemish. So it could be something like that, like a slight blemish that's left over from past activities, past samskars, past impressions, past karma. But we're not really interested in it. So that's one aspect of this statement. You must become free of all material desire. And there's another aspect which is important. And Prabhupada mentions that a pure devotee is one who's always thinking about spreading Krishna consciousness. And he asked us always think about how to spread Krishna consciousness. And you see amongst sincere and serious devotees, practically all the devotees in ISKCON, or many, many of them, in their heart is this desire to see the world Krishna conscious and thinking of different ways. You know, we could do this, we could do that, we could try this. And even if they're not in the position to do all those things, they're thinking, well, maybe this is a good idea and maybe someone else would like to do it. And maybe I could share this idea. So we see how devotees are very absorbed in thinking of ways to spread Krishna consciousness. You know, all over the world you see this. So many programs are going on and so much discussion, how to make Krishna consciousness digestible, acceptable, relevant. How do we get to people in the modern age? What do we need to do differently? What do we need not to change? And etc. Just discussions about how to reach reach people. What books should we print? What books shouldn't we print? What should we distribute? What should we not distribute? Just whatever. And those same devotees, if you ask them, do you have material desires? They'll say, oh yeah, I like pizza. I like nice this. I like nice that. And so that's not exactly what Prabhupada's referring to, because what Prabhupada's referring to is a desire that would keep you in the world. That if I asked you, okay, you could go back to Godhead, but you're going to have to give up this. And you look at this and say, I don't know if I could give this up. Whatever it is. Like you could go back to Godhead now, but you'll have to give up your wife. She can't go with you. I don't know if I could give up my wife or my husband. Or you'll have to give up your dog. Your dog can't come with you. I don't know if I could do it. You can't take your new $3,000 guitar with you just bought yesterday. I don't know. Can we go next week? I want to play it for a week. Something like that could actually prevent you from going back to Godhead. Now, I know Prabhupada said, even if you have a little desire to taste a sweet bowl, it's like, whoa, I have who doesn't have a little desire to taste something? And if that were the case, literally speaking, I think none of us would be able to go back to Godhead. But then Prabhupada is saying over and over again, if you follow Krishna consciousness, you'll go back to Godhead in this life. And then you have Bhagavatam in the 5th canto. Is very interesting because the 5th canto describes the plight of a materialistic person, and it follows him leaving his body and what he's thinking, what's going on, and what he's thinking as a result of what he's done in his life. And basically, at the end of his life, he's thinking, how will my family go on without me? Or I don't want to leave, or I'm attached to this or that. And we see with devotees, when they're leaving their bodies, they're very expert at detaching, because this is what we've been practicing our whole life to do. And so how could they detach if they actually had material desire, so to speak? They couldn't, because there would be something that they couldn't give up and say, I'm not ready to leave, I can't give this up. So when Prabhupada says no material desire, it means nothing strong enough that it would keep us in this world, or nothing strong enough that you'd want to take another body to experience. Now, the next time you look in the mirror, you can be reminded that, or we can be reminded that we must have had some strong desire for something because we got a body. We weren't completely free, right? Something. I mean, we're here, and, unless you took birth to preach, which could be possible, there must have been something where we slipped up, or some desire that was just not, some attachment, something I want to enjoy that I haven't given up. And now here we are again, and we're trying to remove that, whatever that is. So one of the main solutions Prabhupada gave was just engage your heart, your mind, your soul in giving Krishna consciousness to others, and that becomes your raison d'être. That's why you live. That's your mission. And if that's your mission, then no material desire for, your little whatever you like to eat, your pakoras with your tomato chutney is going to keep you in the world. That's the way we need to understand this. So then you have to ask yourself, is there anything so important that I wouldn't go back to Krishna if Krishna offered that to me now? That I'd want to stay here. I was thinking, I just ordered something on Amazon. Krishna, can we go back to Godhead after it arrives? I just want to play with it for a week. Yeah, don't be so stupid. That Amazon, whatever you got, is it's not going to compare to what you're going to get when you go back to Krishna. Plus you'll get love, which is what we're all trying to find anyway, through anything we buy, just trying to find love. So anyway, it's a nice question to ask yourself. Is there anything in this world that I would say to Krishna, I don't think I'm ready because I don't want to give this up? That's what Prabhupada means. The thing that would keep you here. But my point is, if you fully absorb yourself in spreading Krishna consciousness, that's your predominant desire, that the only thing that would keep you here is just the desire to take everybody back. No, Krishna, I don't want to go yet because there are so many people that I'm cultivating in Krishna consciousness. I want to bring them back with me, and they're not ready to go yet. Krishna will say, okay. Or he might say, okay, come back and get them. That's what it means. So now we've said several times, Prabhupada's motto was everything for Krishna, nothing for me. That should be our motto also. And even though there may be things that I want or things that I like, predominantly my consciousness should be everything's for Krishna. Even what I like, I won't like if I can't like it in Krishna consciousness. Then I won't like it. So that's what everything for Krishna means, nothing for me. I won't like something independently. That's where we're trying to head. And when we come to that position, then, as we say in America, you're good to go. You know, like somebody fixes something at the shop, they give it to you, you pay, and then they say, you're good to go. So go down your checklist. No attachment to this, no attachment to that. I just want to preach, I just want to serve. Okay, we'll look at your list and we'll go, okay, you're good to go. You know, you can get on the airplane now. The Vaikuntha Express. I heard the Vaikuntha Express stops on the higher planets. See if anybody wants to get out. That's another discussion. Okay. We have some comments already. So Radhapriya says, in the class yesterday, you mentioned the example of the Amish people. They send their children to Maya. Do you think that is also necessary in our community? I was actually asking myself that question, and I will give you the answer my wife gives. My wife, in raising our daughter, felt if you completely prevent them from any connection with the material world, then when they're teenagers, they'll be more inclined to explore it because they'll feel they were restricted. Whereas if you give them some association with it in a healthy way, so they don't feel like they don't know what it is, they'll be better. So I don't think we could support that philosophy in our books. It's like okay to, send your kids out, buy some marijuana for them, buy them a 6-pack, find them a girl, rent a car for them, let them go out for the weekend. In one sense, they'll have their own experiences anyway once they're older. But I think a lot of our kids, because of their absorption in Krishna consciousness, just wouldn't do it even if you paid them to do it. So they'll do it in a Krishna conscious way, in their own way. They'll explore Maya without being in Maya, so to speak, if they're good devotees. And if they're not good devotees, they'll definitely explore it anyway. You don't have to push them. And the problem is that if it's explored in the wrong way, it may have a bad result. So it's kind of like, give them Krishna consciousness, they grow up, they're 20 years old, they're going to go out and say, okay, the world is yours. Go for it. They're going to do that anyway. But the way Prabhupada teaches this principle is I lost my place. The way Prabhupada teaches this principle is that if you're going to experience material life, you should experience it in a way that you'll become purified, not in a way that you'll become destroyed. And so, there's a fine line between becoming purified and destroyed by something. Because the very thing that purifies you could also destroy you if you're not careful. And so the example, many of you know this example Prabhupada gave, was salt. If something doesn't taste good, sometimes it just needs a little salt. And you put a little salt and it's, this is perfect. Now this tastes so much better. Beta, as you say in India. Beta. It tastes so much better. They say, Vijaylakshmi, they say in the near future, the greatest number of English-speaking people will be in India. And the Indian accent will be the default accent for English. That will be, proper English will be, instead of saying better, you'll have to say beta. the way you say, a lot of Indian people say. So Indian accent will become the new default. We'll all have to speak like Indians. That's interesting. The world is changing. That would be an interesting change. So, getting back to the topic, engage. I have a desire, you have a desire. We're in an immature stage, the desire doesn't go away. So now what do? So I have to engage the desire. I have to face it. I have to purify it. I have to use it. So that's the art of Krishna consciousness, is taking that desire, employing it in a way that you can use it so the desire doesn't consume you, but the desire can be used in Krishna's service. So marriage is the main example Prabhupada gives. If you cannot remain a celibate brahmacharini, then you can get married, and you and your husband and your children, you all engage in Krishna consciousness. So you fulfill your desire within a Krishna conscious context. And so it actually becomes a stabilizing force, and it actually helps you. Whereas if you were single, maybe you would have not been able to maintain your principles or been deviated from Krishna consciousness. Or maybe you would have fallen in love with the wrong guy. Fallen in love. That is a beautiful statement. It's supposed to be risen in love. I was rising in love. I was supposed to rise in love, but I fell in love. That's the problem. So grihastha life means rising in love, and ordinary life means falling in love, falling away from Krishna or rising to Krishna. So that's the idea, that any desire we have that needs to be fulfilled because it's so inherent within our nature, then we have to use it to rise in Krishna consciousness. And if we don't, then we'll fall away from Krishna. That's the idea. Is that okay? Is that answer okay? So Vijaylakshmi is saying, well, you have a desire, you can observe it, but don't partake in it. Like, if it's funny. If you have some crazy desire, which we all do from time to time, or moment to moment, you can look at the desire and say, that desire is interesting. It's a completely insane desire. And you can observe it as if it's not even your desire. That's the Krishna conscious way to deal with desire. It's just kind of like, it's almost like you observe it like it's someone else's desire. That desire is interesting. I wonder where that came from. Yeah, if I did that, I would probably end up in total misery and unhappiness. It's interesting that my mind is trying to tell me to do that. I must have done it a million times in my past lives, and the impressions are still there, the spots. I couldn't wash out all the spots, so there's still some dirt in there that's telling me to do this. Now, I will admit to all of you, and I'm not going to pretend that it's easy to do this. It's not, because we identify with the mind. But it's something you can try to practice, observing your thoughts. Like you're walking down the street and you're thinking, oh, it would be nice to have this. And whatever this is something a devotee would never do. And you can stop and say, that thought was interesting. Wonder where that came from. And then you tell yourself, I would never do that. I don't even know why I'm thinking of that. I would never do that. And if I did that, I would regret it, and I would be so unhappy. And so you can, talk your way out of it. But the good news is, when you become more Krishna conscious, that's not even going to be there anymore. Or is rarely going to be there. Or not, the intensity of it will not be strong. Okay, so people says, desire not strong enough that we need to take another body. Yeah. That's the criterion. So we could ask the question, do you have any desire that's strong enough that would cause you to take another body? And if the answer is yes, I have such and such desire, well, now you know where you need to work. You need that. I need to purify that desire, or detach from that desire, or transcend that desire. Right? I mean, we have to know what the obstacle is, right? So all of us have some obstacle. All of us have some bigger desire. And for most of us, it's the same thing. Lust, greed, anger, envy. Those are the big ones. Lust, greed, anger, envy, and illusion. The big five. Which of the big five is your biggest problem? Is it lust? Is it greed? I want more. And greed could be greed for position, for fame. Is it anger? I have to have everything my way. I have to control everything. Is it envy? I want to pull everyone down, criticize everyone, put myself on a pedestal. Or am I just in complete illusion that I think I'm going to be happy in this world with so-called material enjoyment? So the big five. The big five will keep you here forever, so we have to be able to transcend, purify, detach, right? Transcend, T, purify, P, detach, D. TPD, that doesn't sound good. How about TDP? That sounds better. Transcend, detach, purify. TDP. The name of today's class, ladies and gentlemen, is called TDP. Transcend, TD or P, transcend, detach, or purify, or all three. Okay. Vijaylakshmi saying, I don't understand what DP means. Not have any material desire. Not have any material desire strong enough to keep you here. Well, we talked about it enough. You should understand now, I imagine. What would keep you here? It's an interesting meditation in one of my newsletters. It might be in my book. I'm not sure of this article. Well, in theory, we're working on volume 2 because the book, Living the Wisdom of Bhakti, was only half of the articles I wrote. But there was an article there, and in that article I mentioned, what if Krishna came to your house and said, if you would like to go back to Godhead now, we can go right now. But we have to go now. You're not going to be able to tell anybody. You're not going to be able to set anything in order. It's just, we go. And then you meditate on that as if it was actually happening, and you kind of imagine where your mind and heart are going. And I got some response from this, and some devotees have said, that would be fantastic. I would just immediately go. And other devotees said, they realized that would be difficult, and they realized why. So that's an exercise you can do. It's basically the same question I'm asking, but in the form of a more visual form. You're in front of Krishna, and Krishna says, let's go. Now, the politically correct thing is to say, well, I would just go. Of course I would go. You think I'm an idiot? Of course I would go. Didn't say you're an idiot. I just said, think about it. Realistically, if you were sitting there and Krishna, your wife, your mother, your husband, your father, your son, your daughter, your best friends, your guru, you're not going to be able to say, goodbye, see you later, I'm out of here. It's over. You just go. And so the idea was to start to imagine what thought process, what heart process, what feelings you'd be going through at that point. Just to check, are you ready? It's kind of like a blood pressure check. How's your transcendental blood pressure? So that was the idea. So you can all do that exercise. You have to be realistic about it, and don't enter that exercise philosophically thinking, well, I know the right answer. We're not asking you for the right answer. It's not a Bhakti Shastri question. We're asking you what would be, in reality, your answer. And so you meditate, How would I feel in that situation? And a lot of devotees realized, I don't think I would say yes. I would be hesitant. I think eventually we would all say yes, most of us anyway. But there may be some hesitancy before we say yes. And so notice the hesitancy. Why? What is it? What's going on? It's a nice exercise. I did it on myself. It was very, very helpful. Because you realize, it may help you realize attachments you didn't know you had. So, we have a question here from Mr. Question himself. Ajayanitai. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Prashna, the Prashna avatar, who is now competing with Krishna Consciousness for questions. Both Prashna avatar and Krishna Consciousness ask very nice questions. Keeps the discussion alive. Now, Krishna Consciousness, he may be surpassing you. But it may be that Krishna Consciousness already asked all the questions that need to be asked. So now we let Ajayani title. Okay, how is it possible to be without desires when we live under the modes of nature? Because challenges come. Devotees speculate I'm getting lost here. If things are not in your favor, then just to imitate, we again get entangled. Oh, I have to decipher that question. Seems like a few words are missing. Well, number one, you can't be without desire. Many, many times Prabhupada said, it's impossible to be without desire because the difference between something alive and dead is desire. So you can't be without desire. So, number one, you can't be without desire. Is it possible to be without desires when we live under the modes of nature? So that's the answer. You can't be. But we're not talking about being without desire. We're talking about being without material desire. So, Ajayani, the last part of your question, I'm unable to understand it. If you could rewrite it, if you could rewrite it, or maybe I already answered it, that would help. You're in the material world, three modes of nature. Okay, so just try to stay in goodness, because the desires and goodness are conducive for your spiritual life, but desires and passion and ignorance are not. So if we associate with ignorance, we're going to have desires which reflect that ignorance. If we associate with passion, same thing. And it's so interesting because when you get good association, or you go to the Dham, amazing kirtans, whatever, your desires change because the influence of the modes of nature on you has changed. So, it's interesting because it's like the desires are inherent within the modes, and the modes we associate with create the desire. So, the answer to your question, as far as I can understand the question, is stay in the mode of goodness. You'll be fine. Tanya says, I remember reading somewhere that attachments are to be given up, but preferences stay. Oh, that's interesting. I gave up my attachment, but I kept my preference. Yeah, there could be some truth. I would have to speculate a little bit about what was meant, but I think what's meant is we all have a nature. Like I was eating yesterday, it was Kadasi here, and we had some Beet chips, beetroot chips. My wife loves beetroot. My daughter loves beetroot. And I do not love beetroot. But sometimes in chip form, it tastes different and I like it. And these must have been really high quality chips. You know, you ever get chips, the bag's like this big, and there's like 3 chips on the bottom, and you pay like $5. Did that ever happen to you? So, you know, a bag, you know, there's just like a handful of chips on the bottom. They must have been expensive. So when I ate the chip, it tasted exactly like a beet, whereas other chips I had did not. So these must have been cooked in a way and must have been organic, because the flavor of the beet. And if you like beets, you would like these chips, but I don't like beets. So I was eating the beet and I was thinking, this taste, I don't know why, but this taste, I don't like it. And this taste, my wife likes it. And if you get around my wife, you want to do an experiment, get around my wife and say the word licorice and see what she does. See what her face looks like when you say licorice. Licorice. And I like licorice. I don't think licorice. You know, we all have something we like and we all have something we don't like, and it's psychologically or biologically imprinted. It's just our nature. So I think that might be what they meant. You know, material desire, which you can control, but preferences according to your biological, physiological, emotional, psychological, inherent nature. Is just who you are. You're an introvert. You'll probably be an introvert when you're 99, but that's your nature. That's who you are. So you prefer, you know, when you have your birthday party, you invite 3 guests. When you get married, you invite like 8 people. You like being alone. You're an introvert. That's your nature. That's your preference. So that might be. And so preference may be different than desire. It's a nature. It's just how you process it. It's interesting, isn't it? How, or you hear something and you like that sound and someone else's. Do you know what's really funny? I don't know if this is true for all women, but men, especially musicians, will all say music sounds better when it's loud. So they'll make music loud, because when it's loud, it's just you hear everything and you feel it and you hear the bass and it's just everything comes out. It just sounds better. But at least in my family, my daughter, my wife, they don't like it loud. Can you make it quieter? It's too loud. And all the men, at least the musicians, turn it up. It sounds better. So it's like a different nature. And I got some speakers and I was going to buy some stands. And I was asking the guy in the store about it, and we were joking. And I was saying, well, before I buy the stands, I have to ask my wife, because these speakers are in the living room and everything has to be approved. And we were joking and said, I don't care how the speaker sounds, but as long as it looks good, that's all that matters. Like, those speakers are ugly. Get them out of here. Like, I spent $10,000 on those speakers. They sound incredible. And you turn them on, and they're like, oh, I'll just listen on my computer. I don't need these speakers. Get them out of here. They're ugly. So there's this one devotee I know. He's probably spent $10,000 on speakers, you know. And I'm sure he's the only one that could tell the difference, you know. He lives with his mother, and she can, like, yeah, it sound good, you know, but like, turn it down, it's too loud. And so, you know, we have preferences, right? And the women, they'll like clothes that are soft and sheets that are soft and certain color, and the men are, they may not even notice that it's coarse and so forth. So preferences, yeah, those are different than attachments that are going to keep you in the world, or desires that are going to move you away from Krishna. I think that's the point. Does that make sense, Tanya? Is that what they were saying? Like inherent nature? You like music quiet, he likes it loud. You like silk, he likes cotton. You like pink, he likes blue, like that. If that's not what they meant, let me know. Okay. So Billy Lynn says, for example, if I had a wish to explore outer space with Krishna, but was not attached to absolutely needing that to be happy, would that be a thing that would get in the way of me going back to Godhead? This is just an example. Yeah, well, Billy Lynn, it has to be something that Krishna wants to do. So if you call him up and say, Krishna, you want to explore outer space? And he says, I'm everywhere. I don't need to explore it. And then you'll have to say, oh, okay, check that one off the list. It has to be something that has to be something that's within the line of bhakti. So we just, when I was first a devotee, I grew up surfing, and I seriously thought, I said, when I go back to Godhead, I want to be Krishna's surfboard, because you'd like it to be his clothes, his earrings, his flute. And I was thinking, but I don't think Krishna goes surfing. Well, maybe because I want to be a surfboard, maybe he'll start surfing. But probably not. So it can't be something that is not in the service. So it has to be something you like to do, but in the service. So you like to explore. Maybe you want to go start a temple on the top of the Himalayas or something. Use your exploring propensity. But it has to be something within the line of instructions that Prabhupada has given, within the realm of what we can do for service. You like to explore. Maybe you want to go to exotic countries and islands, and so you can preach there. So you can use that propensity to explore. Some devotees do that. They have this propensity to explore, to hike, to climb. So they go to difficult to visit sacred places and see deities that only a few thousand people have ever seen, and take pictures, write articles. So something like that. How does, Vijaylakshmi says, how does one control effects of hormones in youngsters if you send them out to observe Maya? Once I figure that out, I'll tell you. How do you control hormones in youngsters? I think you put them out on Harinam Sankirtan 8 hours a day. That's what Prabhupada did with us, that we were fine. Yes, it's so funny. I was telling my family, I was saying, when I was a new devotee, my program was, and a lot of devotees' program was, go to bed at 11 and wake up at 4. I think I was telling you this the other day, and some devotees were waking up at 3. And the program was, we'd do the morning program somehow or other. We'd try to stay awake, keep our feet on a bucket of ice or whatever we had to do, jump up and down. There were no buckets of ice, but sometimes water. And jumping up and down, definitely. Yeah. We'd keep ourselves awake long enough to eat breakfast. And then after breakfast, we'd clean the temple. And then we would get in the van. So there were no seats in the van. Everyone just pile in, the women in the back and the men in the front. The front of the back, and the women in the back of the back, the men in the front of the back. And then you count. Ek, do, tin. Uno, dos, tres. Un, deux, trois. 1, 2, 3. And by the count of 3, everyone knocking heads, Every single devotee. I think maybe once in a while, one might have stayed awake. So there's the solution, Vijaylakshmi. Deprive them of sleep and get them on the street chanting 8 hours a day. They'll have no problem, as long as they don't go crazy doing that. But anyway, that's what we did, and we were fine. Our hormones were fine. But to control the hormones, you have to have training when you're young, and culture, and, respect the opposite sex. And you have to have these, good samskars. So even though the hormones are going beep, 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 you don't submit to them because you have culture, because you have knowledge, because you're trained, because you know what's proper. You properly respect the opposite sex. You respect other people. You respect animals because that's how you were trained. So even the hormones are pushing. Boom, boom. All right. Should we do some hormone pushing just to get some dramatic effect? Let's see if we can do something. Maybe this will wake you up. I have to listen. Hormones are pushing. It kind of feels like that, right? That's hormone pushing. So, but if you have culture, you can refine that. You can not allow that to be the guiding force in your life, but you can purify it, upgrade it so that you act properly. And so now you know that rap, EDM, and so rock and roll, they're all pushing hormones, right? I was once thinking of doing a seminar and having different kinds of music played and people writing down what you were feeling when you hear that music, and then showing different colors and say, what were you feeling when you see these colors? Just to show how much we're controlled. Okay, hold on. My effulgence is too bright right now. Okay, that is beta. 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 Is that how to say it, Vijaylakshmi? Beta. Or am I giving it, is that an Australian accent? Or a New Zealand accent? If you're from New Zealand, you don't go to Mangal Arti, you go to Mangal Arti. And you don't wear a kurta, you wear a kurta. Did you know that? You like my new kurta? Kurta? Mangal Arti. I went to Mangal Arti. ISKCON's like an interesting movement. We have to speak these Indian languages with our accents. Okay. Some factors for under our control. The media, TV, yeah. Well, let's give an example. So, when you were a college student, I think as a college student in India, it was pretty tough. And I think also your university is like, it's shorter than ours, which means they must pack more information and work you harder. And so if your aspiration is to become a doctor as you did, or whatever it was, and you really, really want to do that, you don't have time for TV, you don't have time for this, you don't have time for that, because you know if you do it, it's just going to deviate you, right? So we need to be that way with Krishna consciousness. I know if I want to be Krishna conscious, I know there's certain things that are going to make it difficult, so I don't have time for it. Why do I want to sit around and subject my consciousness to things which are not going to help me? Like you live in Vrindavan and then you're watching some Bollywood movie, so you're bringing Bollywood into Vrindavan, so you're no longer in Vrindavan. Your body's in Vrindavan, but not your consciousness. So, yeah. You know, a lot of these how-to questions are really meant to be answered by you, not by somebody else. Like, how do I control myself? in the light of media? Well, take out a piece of paper, write that question on top, and write down 20 answers, and pick the ones that are the best. This is a really good exercise. For anything where you're having difficulty with, just write the question on top of the paper and write 20 answers. You have to write 20, because usually the last 3 are the best. The first 3 are obvious and not so deep. The last 3 are the least obvious and usually the deepest. Interesting. Or the last 5. Because after you get to like 6, 7, or 8, you go blank. Then you have to write 12 more. You really have to dig. Try the exercise. It's really interesting. And you can report on how it went. Maybe it went really well, and it would inspire others to do the same. Okay. So, Ajay has a question. A.K.A. Ankush Kumar Singhal. How are plans and desires related in Krishna consciousness? How much desires and plans are favorable for devotees? One man told Prabhupada, I desire to become a pure devotee. Prabhupada said, that is a very good desire. So, Ajay Nitai, make a list of good desires and bad desires. And just when you're deciding what you want, just go to your list and choose the good ones. We can make plans. Prabhupada said, plan for going back to Godhead. So definitely make plans for going back to Godhead. Plan for spreading Krishna consciousness. Make plans. Plan using your abilities in service. Make all kinds of plans. Actually, we should be making plans all the time. Otherwise, we're going to make plans for sense gratification. When we read this section on Maya, one of the things you'll see is basically Prabhupada saying you should be so engaged in service you don't have time for Maya. No time for Maya. I've got no time for Maya. I'm so engaged in service. 24/7 I've got service. I've got no time for Maya. I've got no time for Maya. That's what Prabhupada told us. He said, and as soon as you stop, Maya slips in, takes advantage. So all your desires, employ them in service. You'll be fine. And you'll be fulfilled. Society, association, any desire that comes the way of Krishna consciousness is an undesirable desire. Yeah, but you have to turn it around. Bad association, help them become Krishna conscious. Find good association. If we subject ourselves to the influence of social media, advertising, so forth, yeah, we'll be influenced. But as devotees, we try to protect ourselves as far as we can by not being so open to that. Krishna Consciousness says, I became a devotee when I was 15, like most of my friends' devotees. We were a bit like Amish kids. We did not experience much in life. And it seems that it was necessary for us because many of my devotee friends left to experience what they did not. So I have doubts. If giving initiation to young people who did not experience much in material life and did not fulfill desires is fair, it's risky for both sides, disciple and guru. It seems we have experience in life. If we have experience in life, we'll be more focused and determined in Krishna consciousness and less that we might be distracted. Yeah, it's the same point. You have to... It's really a really fine line. I have a desire, I need to fulfill it. But if I go too far, it's going to backfire, and it's going to become an attachment, which is going to further entangle me with the desire. And so instead of the desire going away, it becomes stronger. And that's the nature of desire. Generally, in trying to fulfill a desire, the desire becomes stronger. So now in Krishna Consciousness, we have to restrict it. So, okay, 1 sweet ball, not 3. But I want 3! Only 1, because if you eat 3, Prabhu, that's sense gratification. If you eat 3, but if you eat 1, it's prasadam and you'll be purified. It's something like that. Like there's a point where it goes, if we made a chart, let's say we made a chart, and, you're going up here, and this is purification. So, you're doing, I don't know if you can see it. It's going in purification. But then it hits a certain point, and it's not purification anymore. Then it's sense gratification. You won't even be able to read my handwriting, but you see what I mean? It's like up to a certain point, it's purification because you're controlling it. But there's this threshold here, this fine line, and then it becomes sense gratification. And then that becomes a problem for you. So that's where it requires some guidance, some intelligence, some detachment to be able to do that. But like you said, that's what most devotees have to do. The fine line between purification and distraction. And I think in the case of your friends, some of them might have done it well, and some may have not. Some may have gone too far in trying to fulfill their desire, so much that they forgot about Krishna. Right? I'm sure that happened to some. Kids need to listen to a class by me on Maya and its bad effects. Maybe they need to listen to a class by young people who have experience of that, who could tell them. Transcend, detach, or purify. TDP. Today's class is entitled TDP. If you have a desire, either transcend it, detach from it, or purify it. But don't surrender to it. TDP. It's the solution. TDP is the detached, transcend, detach, or purify is the solution. That's the title of today's class. So, Piyush Kumar sends his DPs to all of you. If you don't know what a DP is, it's Dandavat Pranams. Katie is back from London, stronger than ever. Katie is a powerhouse. People, I would like to express my perspective to the Lord. Yeah? I hope he accepts it. You can express it if you know it's the right thing to express, of course. Transcend, detach, or purify. Can that be a t-shirt? I don't know if anybody would understand it. You would have to say something before it. If you have a desire, either transcend. It would have to say TDP. If you have a desire, either transcend it, detach from it, or purify it. I don't know. Is that a good t-shirt? Would anybody buy that t-shirt? Diane is here. Is that really your name? Or did you adopt that name when you moved to the West? Or is that an Indian name also? Just pronounced differently. Dian, maybe it's pronounced Diane, and it's just spelled like Diane. Diane. So Jeremiah says, matter of fact, I have an attachment that will make me hesitate to leave immediately. I would like to leave everything in order, no trouble for my family to handle when I'm gone. Yeah, we want to leave everything in order. Yeah, but everything's never going to be in order. I would like to leave everything in order for my family, no trouble, so they can handle when I'm gone. But it's like, when are you going to be ready to die? When's your family going to be ready for you to die? Never. That's the reality. Death always comes. Didn't someone say death always comes too early? Like nobody's ready for it. Like who's going to be ready for it's always, can you come next year? I have things to do. So I think Jyotirmai, that's a common thing that many people with families would be feeling. We're going to read some things in Prabhupada's letters that will, excuse me, that will address this indirectly. But nevertheless, it'll address it. Billy Lynn says, I feel it would be incorrect to leave my mom and family without warning if I had the choice for my joy and happiness with Krishna. I prefer to just go with Krishna, but I feel it would be selfish. Yeah, it could be. Unless Krishna says, I want you to go. Okay, we'll rephrase the question. Krishna says, I want you to go. Not like, what do you want to do? I want you to go. And then he says, are you coming? So, the sentiment of a devotee is, okay, I want to go to Krishna, but for me, I'd rather, stay here and help people. Okay, that's a nice sentiment. But for the sake of this exercise, Krishna says, I want you to come with me right now. So I just need a yes or no from you. And then if you say yes, we'll go. That's the question. Krishna Consciousness says, regarding Krishna asking me if I am ready to leave this material world and not tell anyone that I'm going back to the spiritual world, when I read this exercise for the first time, I thought I could go with Krishna and go back to the spiritual world if Krishna let me inform those who are close in my heart where I'm leaving, just to make them not worry that I disappear. Yeah, right. What happened to Krishna Consciousness? I don't know. We're looking for her. Can't find her. Okay. All right. Well, okay, let's concede. Krishna says, I want you to come back with me right now, and you can leave a note. You can send one email to one person, and then we can go. Okay, so that solves your problem, Krishna Consciousness. Ari Sudandas has a question, must be from Mexico, South America. I would like to know about the Guru women in ISKCON. Since one can think, driven by feelings, there's no problem, but to avoid, based only on feelings. They're in Shastra, and we see that there are great, very advanced devotees in ISKCON who Shastrika have different opinions. Yeah. The conclusion is the last statement you made. They have different opinions. So, as this is a different topic, I would just like to briefly say this topic is still being discussed. And the discussion centers around, it's really a discussion about context, application, and different, because what seems to work in one country is not seeming to work in another, and vice versa. So that's where the discussion goes. So the discussion gets confusing, because then sometimes people start trying to adjust the philosophy a little bit to adapt to their needs. And so they're saying, no, or yes. So it's a problem, and I think it's a reality that as ISKCON progresses in the future, like every religious movement, some things there's going to be no solution because we're different. Some of us are so different, there are certain things we'll never agree on. Even if we're both reading the same thing, we'll have completely different ideas as to what it means, or we'll have different ideas about how to apply it because we're so different. Our upbringing is different. Our natures, our personalities are different. And our services are different. People we're dealing with are different, and we'll tend to see things, some things, in light of those. And, I mean, like we look at America. In America, there's a lot of people who really like Donald Trump, and there's a lot of people who really don't like him. And the ones who really don't like him, they don't understand how anybody could like him. And the ones that really like him, they can't understand how anybody would not like him. So it's just people are different. And they're both looking at the same Donald Trump. It's not like he said one thing to one group and another thing to another group. What he said is public. Everybody knows what he's saying. Everybody knows what he's doing. So that's a whole discussion. Or that's a whole many discussions. Taking on wishes that invoke Krishna, that please Krishna. That are aligned with Krishna's instructions, Prabhupada's instructions. Then you're okay. So, but anyway, Billy Lynn, if you like exploration, maybe you can do some exploration. You can explore new avenues of preaching, explore new places to give Krishna consciousness. Even, you don't have to go there. You could just try to contact people in some remote island somewhere and think, I want to give them Krishna consciousness. That'll be your digital exploration. Whatever, you can use it. Yeah, you can do it with someone. You have to find someone. A co-explorer. Your soul explorer mate. My classes are fun. Yeah. If you're not having fun, the more we did a training once, and they said the more fun it is, the more people learn. It's like a statistical reality. The more they're having fun, the more they learn. So we had titled these classes "Laugh Your Way Back to Godhead." Okay. The exercise about media, you had a question, right? I forget the question. How do you maintain your Krishna consciousness in light of the influences of media and so forth? Write that question down on the top of a piece of paper. And any of you who have a challenge, write it down. And then write 20 answers to that question. And after like 4, 5, 6, 7, you'll think you have all the answers. Just keep writing. And the later answers are usually the best answers. And so sometimes when you have a question, before you ask someone else, you can do this exercise. You might even get a better answer because the answer that's custom made for you. There's a program that goes on the browser called, what's it called? I can't even pronounce it. Ad Blocks Plus. Okay, yeah. All right. Just meant for devotees. Blocks the ads so you don't have to see them all. Oh, that's nice. As well as offensive ads. Okay, Ads Block Plus. Everybody get it. I've seen children of devotee parents are more interested in the outside world of sense gratification, like movies, etc., listening to Bollywood songs, maybe because they've been deprived. Should we let such kids be free to choose? Well, maybe they're more attached because their parents told them don't listen to it. And whenever you're told don't do something, you become intrigued and attached. And you're like, okay, let's do it. Sometimes I'm traveling and the parents will bring their children and they go, he's a naughty boy. He doesn't chant Hare Krishna. Can you get him to chant? And I tell them, don't chant Hare Krishna. I don't want you to chant. And they're asking, why are you doing that? I said, because he'll do the opposite of what I tell him. So, sometimes it's like that, isn't it? You're restricted from doing something. The very thing you're restricted from doing is the thing you want to do. Don't chant Hare Krishna. Do not chant Hare Krishna. And then he'll pick up his beats. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's the nature of children sometimes. They're contrary. But I would say, ultimately you want to leave it to them. This is for you to decide. You can, when I chant Hare Krishna, I'm in ecstasy. I'm rolling on the ground, laughing like a madman, tears pouring from my eyes, my voice choking. I'm swimming in an ocean of ecstasy. But if you don't want to chant Hare Krishna, that's fine with me. Do whatever you want. Something like that, Of course, I joke with parents. I'll say, why can't I get my kid to chant? And I'll say, do you like chanting? And they'll say, not really. Well, we'll say, that's why you can't get them to chant, because they look at you when they're chanting and you look like you just saw a horror movie. And they're looking at your face thinking, my mother looks really miserable when she's chanting japa. I don't think I'm going to chant japa. And of course, we're making jokes here and making fun. But there's truth to it, right? I mean, if I were eating something, right, and you look at my face and my face is like, you're probably going to look at that and say, oh, I'm not going to eat that, right? But if I'm eating it and I'm going, oh my God, so good. I never tasted anything so good. You're going to be thinking, what is that? Give me some. So sometimes the parents are chanting Hare Krishna and they look bored out of their minds and don't think your kids don't notice. And you're trying to tell your kids, chant Hare Krishna, be happy. And go, well, you don't look happy when you chant. If I'm going to end up like you, I'm not going to chant. Better I go play video games. So I have to take that in consideration, right? To go the safe way. Okay. Vrindavan says, a.k.a. Pandora Hinson, the time of death can come at any time. Everyone should have their legal paperwork in order, right, ahead of time. It has given me peace of mind knowing that all my paperwork is in order. I have already paid for my cremations. Wow. Nice. Yeah, this is important. YouTube asks for an ad-free payment fee. Yeah. Might be worth it to save your devotional creeper. How much does it cost to save your creeper? $4.99 a month. Okay, maybe worth it. Similar question about whether we would go with Krishna or not was once asked by Bhakti Vijaylakshmi Maharaj after narrating a story about Narada Muni trying to bring anyone willing back to the spiritual world. Yeah. He had exclusive permission and to bring anyone back, and he failed because everyone had some other priorities. So, yeah, we'll do a play. Krishna comes, okay, would you like to go back to Godhead? And you go, let me check my calendar. Let's see what I'm doing this week. Krishna this week's kind of booked up. How about in like 2.5 weeks, I'm free. I think I could get everything done. And Krishna says, no, it doesn't work that way. When you're called, you have to go now. You're like, I don't know if I'm ready. And Krishna says, yeah, that's the point. You don't know if you're ready. Well, get ready. But this story that's being told, that's exactly what happened. And so this devotee is asked, you're told you can go back to Godhead now, Krishna's inviting you. And he said, well, my daughter's getting married. What about after the wedding? Make a long story short, every time Narada Muni came back, he said, well, what about after this? What about after that? And then he became a snake. And then he became a disciple in his next life of Narada Muni as a snake. Unfortunate soul. There's also a way to disable all images that load in your browser. Wow. Okay, we'll see you later, Sangeeta. Then you would not be able to see pictures of Krishna, so you might not want that setting change unless you're desperate. Yeah, it depends. Someone said, you have all the Vedas on your phone. In your pocket, you have all the Vedas. What a time in history. And you all have all the worst videos, the worst cat videos ever made, also in your pocket. So that's the double-edged sword, right? You've got all the nectar that was ever created and all the nonsense that was ever created. It's all in your pocket. So we can actually read some more because we have 7 minutes. So that was a lot of discussion. So now I've lost my place. Just give me a moment. Okay, so this is called Your Success is Assured. This will be more encouraging. If you weren't encouraged by the last one, this should make up for it. My simple request is that you remain in association of devotees and continue to chant your 16 rounds daily and follow strictly the 4 regulative principles and read our books with great care. In this way, your Krishna conscious advancement will be assured success. In other words, your success will be assured. And at the end of this life, you will go back to God and back to home and live with Krishna eternally. So there's a series of letters that I've put here where Prabhupada is basically saying the same thing. And we have said this often, that Prabhupada said this. But I think it's just nice to read here and there Prabhupada saying it, just so we hear it directly from him. So let me read that again. My simple request is that you remain in association of devotees and continue to chant your 16 rounds daily and follow strictly the 4 regulative principles and read our books with great care. In this way, your Krishna consciousness advancement will be assured, and at the end of this life, you will go back home, back to Godhead, and live with Krishna eternally. So Prabhupada is only saying 3 things: 16 rounds, 4 principles, and read my books. And you're assured. So if we look at the quote about desire, having no desire, and we look at this quote, then we can understand 2 things. Either if I do this, I'll have no desire, or if I do this, Krishna will be so pleased, he'll just take me. And when I walk through that gate into Braj, all my desires will be purified. So we'll read one more. This is a nice one. This is from 1975, May 9th. And this is to Mr. Fletcher, so Mr. Fletcher is not a devotee. Maybe Mr. Fletcher is just inquiring about Krishna consciousness. Thank you for your kind sentiment. So we don't know the context of the letter, so we don't know what he said, and we don't know who Mr. Fletcher is, but probably not essential to know that to understand Prabhupada's answer. You are very fortunate to be taking part in the Krishna Consciousness movement. If you take it very seriously, then you will not have to take another birth in this miserable material world. You can go back home, back to Godhead at the end of this life. So my request is that you take it up very boldly and finish your business in this material world. So this is to someone who hasn't even started yet. That makes it a little more powerful. You could say, this is just a letter to a man on the street, and Prabhupada saying, you can go back to God and just take up the process. Okay, we can read one more. This is another finish your business letter. In the last letter, Prabhupada said, finish your business. Finish your business. What's your business? Your business is not to finish, painting your house. Your business is to go back to Godhead. That's what Prabhupada means. Doesn't mean finish your business, send your kids to college, get your retirement in order, this and that. It means finish your business of material life. This is from 1975 in May. I am in due receipt of your weekly Sankirtan newsletter. So this was a devotee who was compiling scores, book distribution scores, and sending it to Prabhupada. I'm always happy to hear of increasing book sales. These reports are very encouraging to me. Our real business is to print and distribute books. By doing this business, you are becoming recognized by Krishna. Please try to continue working so nicely for Krishna, following the rules, chanting 16 rounds, studying my books, and you will finish your business in this material world in this life and enter into the spiritual world to live with Krishna eternally. Don't become discouraged by any so-called problems. Make your program simple. That is to say, always make sure that you are somehow or other engaged in Krishna's service. And the best service is preaching or engaging others in Krishna's service. So continue in this way and be happy. So another example, just stay absorbed in Krishna. You'll go back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. So that means we only have, there's only 2 more things to read. Why don't I just read them, and then tomorrow we can start talking about your favorite topic, Maya. Now, tomorrow I have a meeting. It was normally, we were having meetings at 9:30 or 10. These are meetings that I'm going to be having for a while. And then they'll slow down. But the meeting's at 8:30. So tomorrow's class is only a half hour. But I think a half hour is better than nothing, right? So we'll meet you tomorrow. Maybe I'll go on a little earlier tomorrow so we can get a full half hour, 5 minutes early. Okay, so let's read these 2. This is from 1975. Please see that they are all chanting 16 rounds on their beads and following the rules and regulations. We have to become very strict in this matter. To go back home, back to Godhead is not an easy thing. It requires great discipline of body and mind and performance of pure devotional service. So I included this letter because sometimes devotees say it's not easy, and Prabhupada is agreeing. But as we often said, doing anything great's not easy. And so, we don't want to get hung up with this, it's hard. Well, whatever it is, it is. But this is the price we have to pay. So that's the idea. So Prabhupada's just reinforcing that, I mean, you could read this and say, Prabhupada saying, don't be lazy because this is not easy. Or, Prabhupada's putting a job in front of you and saying, okay, do this. This is not an easy thing, but if you do this, you'll succeed in this way. And this way, of course, means you'll go back to Godhead. So I think that's important, because when, if you think you're going to do something that's easy and then it becomes hard, you're like, oh, this is so hard. But if you already know it's hard before you start, then it's easier to do it because you accept that this is just what I have to do. Right? And the last one. You have taken seriously the publishing and also distribution of these books, and that is the success of our mission. You have taken seriously this work, and I know that my Guru Maharaj is pleased with you because he wanted this. So by this, your endeavor, you will go back home, back to Godhead. I believe this was written to a devotee in charge of the BBT. Now this is interesting, because Prabhupada doesn't even say 16 rounds, 4 principles, read my books. He's saying this service is so dear, and you've dedicated your life to this service. buy this, you'll go back home, back to Godhead. That's amazing, isn't it? So, another way to go. Not that you wouldn't be chanting and hearing, but service is just so important. Book distribution so important and so pleasing that it's like this devotee's dedicated his life to this service, and Prabhupada's saying, it's so valuable, so pleasing, you'll go back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. So now we're going to end. We'll see you a little bit early tomorrow if I can make it. Sometimes I go out in the morning for a walk, and I just get back like a few minutes before, so that could possibly happen. But I will try to get back early tomorrow. Okay? Hare Krishna to all of you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bolo.